You are now listening to the Select Gaming Podcast.
Dusty, I've been on the internet, as one is, and there seems to be a little kerfuffle about folks donating, or as it were, not donating, or eventually donating, or perhaps not donating all of the money to charity that one raises from the video gaming community. Do you want to give us just a quick rundown? I'm sure people have already seen it, but what's the elevator pitch about what's happening now with the regards to Jirard, the Completionist?
So this is probably this is probably one of the biggest or hottest topics in the YouTube video game YouTuber community, whatever you want to call it. So Jirard the Completionist, long story short, for the folks who don't know, had a foundation, had been raising money throughout the years through donations from subscribers and just people in general who would watch his content. And he's basically been sitting on about $600K of money for almost, I think it's a decade, I could be wrong, but almost 10 years here. And I guess what we had happen was karljobst and some ordinary gamers who are two YouTubers that I watch quite a bit, actually, they kind of are like investigative video game journalism, kind of were like, dude, where's the money? You haven't donated it. They brought light to this situation, and eventually what ended up happening, Jirard was basically like, okay, here's the money, now I've donated it, let's move on, but I actually want to sue you guys for this, for bringing this to light. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with, I guess you could say, a foundation who said that they were going to donate the money. They didn't. This situation was brought to light, and now they're like, okay, we donated it, leave us alone. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here.
And there's the added vector, like that sort of personal, emotional vector that the Completionist's mother
it was in her memory,
had dementia.
Yeah. So
and so the money that was raised was for that purpose. And so you'd have live streams and specific events where it was emphasized repeatedly that this money in its entirety was going straight to dementia research. And for the longest time, it seems like that wasn't the case. And I think this really sort of, for me, it really just sort of begs the question as to the extent to which you can really, really consider these types of charitable events that we have sometimes in the YouTube gaming landscape as being trustworthy, and whether or not it's right for us to donate our money through these vectors of basically YouTube celebrities who then, to a greater or lesser extent, they do donate the money. But I Dusty, my question to you really is, why don't people take the effort, and if they're really committed to this issue, donate directly to the Cancer Society or Alzheimer's research? Why do I need to donate to a YouTube celebrity who has, maybe potentially good intentions, but also, ulterior economic reasons for doing this? Not in terms of like embezzling cash. I mean, you and I haven't seen the papers. We don't know any of this for to be true, but clearly you gain a sort of notoriety in the community for being someone who raises money, and that can't help but feed back into your sort of career as a professional YouTuber, right?
I'm always skeptical of any sort of foundations because I just think this history, whether it's a celebrity or whatever, I mean, I think that there's some weird sort of shadow around most foundations of things going awry. Like the money never goes where it's supposed to. And I think it's like, I'm always skeptical because of that, because there's been so many of these horror stories where the original intent has shifted in where the money was supposed to go. And I think like what you said right there, like if someone wants to donate to a cause, why not donate directly somewhere to something that has a little bit more of like a longevity and a responsibility of like saying, okay, here's the receipts. You have to look at this situation in this way. Like there's a ton of paperwork and there's a bunch of T's and I's that like, I'm not going to go through. Like we're not doing that on this. Like we're more of
and
just
we're not qualified. We're not lawyers.
And we're not qualified. But I think there's a couple things with regards to this situation that it's like, that brings to light. There's been a couple things where people have been saying, like people who have been apologists for him who are saying things like, well, maybe he was waiting till he got $1 million and then he was going to donate it to make a bigger thing of it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, maybe. But the whole intent of raising these funds, regardless, was to give it to the places that need it the most. If you're sitting on $600K for 10 years, well, then that's 10 years lost where these institutions could have utilized those funds to make a difference in people's lives who needed it. Sure, you gave it over now. The whole thing of this is research, right? And helping people was to help people with dementia. And it's like research needs money. So you basically stalled 10 years of potential research that could have helped. And it's like, I don't think that that's cool, man, at all, because it's like that was the intent. You stalled the whole intent of this, and now it's leaving a sour taste in people's mouths. You can't just be like, yeah, leave us alone, like we had it, we're giving it now, but it's like that's time lost. So I don't know, that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think you get a mulligan on this. If you're holding a large substantial chunk of money that is promised to be sent to a charitable foundation or a research institution, look, there's no good reason. Everything is window dressing because, I needed to find the right foundation. Well, then say so. We want to reach $1 million. He never said this, but that was the speculation, right? Like that's some of what the apologists have said. Well, then if that was the case, then you need to say so. And we shouldn't project our, any positive feelings that anyone had about the completionists onto this act. It's complete and separate. But I think there's like something particular about YouTube or the YouTube celebrity culture that I actually worry that it just shuts off people's critical faculties sometimes because nowadays, I mean, depending on where people at home are listening from, you can't go into a restaurant or a grocery chain and they're not asking you, would you like to round up your total to the nearest dollar to donate to some charity or other? You go to McDonald's, it's always asking you if you want to donate to the Ronald McDonald Foundation or what have you. And I think people are rightly skeptical about about donating to those places. But I think when you have a friendly face who talks about Ori and the Will of the Wisps or some Nintendo Switch game, or talks about, indeed like buying all of the Nintendo eShop for the purposes of like archiving and game preservation, I think sometimes we shut off our critical faculties. The only thing I could say about this is if you think that donation is the way that you're going to make to charitable foundation is gonna be how you make your change in the world, then don't do it. Then don't allow someone else to make that donation on your behalf. Do it directly yourself and do your own research.
So I guess the benefit of donating to a YouTuber or a celebrity, something with regards to that seems to work, is that a famous person can bring light to a situation that would otherwise go unnoticed, right? So I think that there is some benefit to that. But I think whenever I see YouTubers or celebrities who do these things as a side hustle, I do get skeptical. Like, unless someone is doing this as a full-time thing and they put their whole heart into it, it's really tough for me to get behind because I look at it as a sort of company for clout, as bragging rights to say things like, look at what I do and blah, 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 and such, so support me for everything else that I do. Like me because of the things that I'm doing, right? So I'm always skeptical for that. And I mean, I think people should treat a lot of those things with skepticism, because if you're not seeing the receipts, I don't buy into those things, man. It's like, if I donate to something, I want to get that receipt right away. Also as a tax benefit as well, right? You get to write this stuff off and claim it on your taxes. So, I mean, I rarely donate to these YouTuber things. I'm skeptical of them, but I mean, I don't want that to stop people from donating to good causes, because I think from time to time, there are individuals out there who do good things. I just want to say one thing though, and I don't know if this is, I just have an analogy with regards to like potentially, maybe this is what was going on with the whole situation. And I'll harken back to a personal tale of mine where I worked in a big corporate office, and I worked in a room where there happened to be a Nintendo Wii. Well, everybody used to play this Nintendo Wii until they didn't. So what did I do? Well, I slowly unhooked the wires. I put it in my big old shelf, and I was like, listen, if someone wants to play a game, I'll take it out and we'll play Nintendo Wii. But as of right now, it's just collecting dust. So I let it sit on my shelf for maybe about 4 months. And then the Wii happened to make its way into my backpack, then happened to make its way into my home on my TV stand. And nobody asked about it because people stopped caring. And I still have that Wii. And that company's gone now, so you can't come after me. Haha, Dusty wins. I think sometimes that's kind of what happens when people have these foundations. I think they try to see how far they can go without giving the money, or to keep at least some of it. And I think time does this thing where it makes people forget about these things. And I think without, karljobst or Muda from Some Ordinary Gamers bringing this to light, I mean, if you want to thank anybody right now for that money getting donated, you can thank those two individuals, because otherwise it would still be sitting in a bank account somewhere. I don't know if that was the intent, if there was some nefarious thinking in correlation to my Nintendo Wii story, if that's what they were trying to do. But I mean, who knows, man? So I don't know. This is a hot topic in gaming. I mean, I think we'll keep on it. We'll see where it goes, but it's a juicy one, and I don't think it'll end anytime soon. So yeah. We'll see how it goes.
More updates as they come, but in the meantime, be careful who you give your money to.
Thank you for tuning into the Select Gaming Podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. We create videos for the Select Gaming that are guided by our personal interests, and your support makes that possible.